a fella called Noel Willcox. He's a scaffolder. He runs a business and he's got a yard in northwest London that is just inside the low emission zone. And clearly he was driving back and forth and incurring charges and potentially quite big fines. And he was asked for 11.5 grand. Now, he's fought this case. And the argument that he's made is that the LEZ signs and the ULEZ signs, and indeed, actually, you could apply this too to the congestion charge in central London. All they do is tell you you're going into a zone. They don't tell you what it means. They don't tell you what it would cost. I wonder whether, as 0 hour approaches for ULEZ, I wonder whether this might be a way out of people having to pay the charges and indeed pay their fines. Well, who better to join me on this, down the line from Manchester, than Nick Freeman, the lawyer, of course, famous as Mr Loophole. So, Mr Loophole, this guy has won his case. What does it mean?
Well, it means that the signage isn't authorised. There's been a hearing. He owed £11,500 in, I think, 7 tickets in total. He took his case to a tribunal, and the tribunal adjudicated. This was back in October 2021, so it's some time ago. He took his case and he challenged it on 2 bases. One, that the signs weren't authorised, and secondly, they provided inadequate information. And the adjudicator very fairly said to TfL, I hear these arguments. I'm going to now adjourn the case for 3 weeks for you to prove to me that these signs comply with the directions, the 2016 directions, and that they provide sufficient information. TfL didn't do anything at all. He then concluded that he could not be satisfied, number one, that the signs were authorised, and number two, that they provided sufficient information, and therefore he found in favour of the scaffolder. It wasn't him who was driving, actually, it was his various employees. But he said, we honestly just didn't know that this was a problem. We didn't know there wasn't sufficient information. So at the moment, we have this case is not binding. It's what's called persuasive. But in my view, I think he made the right decision on the right basis. This has just come to light now on the eve of ULEZ. I think it will be, if I was advising TfL, I would say, I'm going to hold an embargo right now. I'm going to do nothing, and I'm going to rectify this problem. I'm going to make sure, first of all, that the signage is authorised. And secondly, I'm going to amend the signs. I'm going to take them all down, and I'm going to make sure they're all marked with a C, which indicates it's a charging zone. And that will deal with the problem in relation to, is there sufficient information? Because every motorist doesn't need to know we're in a zone. What they want to know is, what is the consequence of entering that zone? So as the signs currently stand, number one, they're not authorised, but secondly, they don't say anything other than we're entering a zone, and that could mean a whole host of things.
Yeah, I mean,
camper, or what is it? What does it mean?
The congestion charge, the congestion charge in central London does have that C. Yeah. Inside a red ringlet, but the others don't. Another thought on this, Nick. Interesting, with the exception of Slough Council, all round the outer ring of the M25, Kent, Surrey, Thurrock Council, Essex, every single one of those councils is refusing to put ULEZ signs on the edge of their boundaries to say you're entering the zone. Could this lead to further confusion?
I think it'll lead to more than confusion. I think it will lead to the unenforceability of any fines that anyone seeks to impose, that TfL seeks to impose. There has to be signs. You have to advise the motorists, number one, that there are signs which are authorised, and secondly, that you're entering a zone where you're going to be charged. And if there's no signs, no fines. That's my view.
How very, very interesting. Well, Nick, I've no doubt that Sadiq Khan and his team will ignore your advice completely, and they will plough on with this beginning at midnight tonight. Although, I have to say, the area that I live in on the border, I think 90% of the signs have been vandalised already. So just a last thought on this. How much police time and resource do you think they can put into stopping people taking away the cameras?
Well, I understand in South East London, something like 90% of the signs have been vandalised. And obviously that's a serious criminal offence, and I wouldn't be advising anyone to do that. That's not the way to proceed. But we're talking about serious money. In the last 2 years, TfL have earned £320 million. Now that might be an awful lot of money to pay back. There's huge amounts at stake here, and it must be in their interest. Now they're on notice that there's a potential problem, to get their act together, to call a halt, get the signs everywhere, and make sure they provide the right information. Then they're on a much firmer wicket.
Nick Freeman, thank you very much indeed. Well, that was a legal opinion, folks. We can't guarantee you that Nick is right. We can't guarantee you that if you don't pay your £12.50 and you get a fine and you refuse to pay the fine, that it won't be possible to enforce it. So please don't take what's just been said as absolute gospel, but it is very, very interesting indeed. And by the way, there's a lot of abuse being hurled at Sadiq Khan, and I do understand why. But remember, it was Boris Johnson, when he was Mayor of London, that proposed the ULEZ extension.